You see hundreds of faces every day. But how many do you truly understand? The real danger isn't what others do to you. It's believing you know who they are when you don't. People wear smiles like armor. They speak with charm. But behind the mask lies complexity, history, motive. And if you don't learn to see through it, you'll keep getting blindsided. Today, we're breaking the illusion. 10 truths about people you must accept. Not to judge, but to protect your peace. Because Stoicism doesn't make you cold, it makes you unreadable and untouchable. Stoic wisdom isn't about mistrusting people. It's about seeing clearly then, choosing wisely. You don't need to fix others. You just need to stop being fooled by appearances. When you understand these truths, you stop reacting emotionally and start responding with power. You are not here to fix people. You are here to understand, respond wisely, and move with clarity. Let's begin with the first truth Stoics live by. Everyone is shaped by what you cannot see. Every person you meet is shaped by what they've lived through. Their fears, their habits, their reactions. They're not random. They're the outcome of years of pain, disappointment, survival, and coping. Some people were raised in chaos, so now they need control. Others were constantly criticized, so now they seek validation. Some were deeply betrayed, and now they don't trust anyone, even when you've done nothing wrong. When someone comes off as cold, or distant, or overly intense, you're not just dealing with a personality, you're witnessing a history. Stoic philosophy teaches us to see the layers, not just the mask, to look deeper into the patterns and trace them back to where they began. Not to excuse the behavior, but to understand its origin and still hold the line. Someone who constantly needs to be in control might not be power-hungry. They may have once been powerless. Someone who interrupts every conversation may have never been heard growing up. Someone who keeps you at arm's length may have been shattered when they once let someone in. You can understand it. You can empathize, but you are not obligated to absorb it. Understanding does not mean accepting damage as normal. Empathy does not mean erasing your own boundaries. You can say, "I know why you act this way," and still say, "I will not let it shape how I live, speak, or feel." Marcus Aurelius said, "When you understand someone's behavior, you are not obliged to tolerate it." Someone's pain may explain their behavior, but it doesn't justify controlling, manipulative, or emotionally harmful patterns. In a relationship, this shows up when someone becomes hyper-controlling, needing to know where you are, second-guessing your choices, testing your loyalty. You might discover they were cheated on, abandoned, used, so now they cling, monitor, and doubt. That pain is real, and it deserves compassion. But it does not mean you have to live under emotional surveillance. Not everyone who's been hurt chooses to heal. Some recreate the very thing that broke them this time, as the one in control. That's not your job to fix. Everyone carries wounds. Some wear theirs quietly. Others weaponize them. Your responsibility is to respond with reason, not rescue. To stay grounded in who you are, even when someone else is still trying to survive who they were. In a work environment, this truth still applies. A colleague who hoards responsibilities, micromanages the team, or distrusts delegation might have been punished in the past for letting go of control. They operate from fear, and if left unchecked, their fear turns into friction for everyone else. Understanding them doesn't mean enabling them. It means holding respectful boundaries and encouraging a culture where shared responsibility is not feared but trusted. Clarity comes from asking yourself, do I feel empathy or do I feel manipulated? Am I helping or am I absorbing damage that isn't mine? There's a difference between being kind and being complicit. People are more than their pasts, but many don't evolve beyond their defense mechanisms. And if you're not careful, they will slowly convince you to make space for their damage inside your peace. It starts with small compromises, silencing yourself, tiptoeing around their moods, letting guilt override your intuition, until one day you forget where your comfort ends and their survival begins. You don't owe anyone your peace, especially not to maintain a dynamic that slowly chips away at your self-trust. When you live with Stoic clarity, you learn to hold two things at once. I understand you, and I will not lose myself in trying to accommodate you. That's not cold. That's wisdom. Not everyone who's in pain will heal. Not everyone who says they care will change. And not every wounded person wants peace. Some just want power in the form of sympathy. Protecting your energy is not selfish. It's intelligent. It's strategic. It's survival with soul. You can offer understanding without offering your whole life as a buffer. You can say, I get why you're like this, and still say, this is where it stops. You can be kind without being controlled. You can be empathetic without being entangled. You can be soft-hearted and steel-spined. Someone else's trauma doesn't excuse repeated harm. Someone else's fear don't justify your silence. And someone else's story should never erase your boundaries. People are products of their pasts. But that's not a past to make you a casualty of them. Know where empathy ends and where responsibility begins. Because clarity isn't cold, it's necessary, and your peace will thank you for it. Not everyone says what they mean, and not everyone means what they say. Communication, as most people experience it, is a surface-level game: words, tone, eye contact. But if you stop there, you'll miss the message completely. Because people don't just speak through words. They speak through timing, silence, patterns, inconsistencias. They speak through what they choose to leave out, not just what they say out loud. And if you don't learn how to decode that language, you'll believe someone cares when they're just being polite. You'll think someone's loyal because they're consistent, when really, they're just predictable. You'll confuse charm with honesty, and fake warmth for genuine connection. Stoicism trains the mind to observe what most people overlook, to listen with your eyes, to notice not just the message, but the motive behind it. You start seeing that some people are overly agreeable not because they respect you, but because they want something. Others give you too much eye contact, not out of confidence, but because they've trained themselves to appear safe. Some avoid conflict with soft smiles, but that smile hides resentment that will leak out later in subtle sabotage. And on the other side of the spectrum, the quiet, blunt, slightly awkward person you ignored at first might be the one with the deepest integrity, the one who's not trying to impress, just trying to be real. People communicate in code. It's rarely about the words. It's about the intent and the emotional frequency behind those words. There's a difference between polished manipulation and raw honesty. The overly charismatic person who makes you feel instantly comfortable. Sometimes that's a practiced skill, not a genuine trait. Because manipulation rarely looks like aggression. It often shows up in warmth, in laughter, in good vibes, in attention that feels just a little too perfect, too early. Genuine connection isn't always smooth. Sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes it's hesitant. Because real people, especially the ones who've been hurt, take their time. They don't offer their trust in one conversation. They build it, brick by brick. That's why Stoics don't rush into connection. They pause. They observe. They test for consistency, not just chemistry. When someone flatters you too easily, they watch. When someone overshares on the first meeting, they don't feel flattered. They feel cautious. Not because they're cold, but because they understand one powerful truth. Trust is earned slowly, and character is revealed over time. The Stoic approach to communication isn't passive. It's intentional. It's about choosing to respond based on evidence, not emotion. You don't react to someone's charm. You don't jump at kindness without context. You let their behavior unfold, and you study the patterns. Someone might say, "I'm fine," but their tone is tight. Their body is tense. Their eyes avoid yours. You don't argue. You don't push. But you take note. Another person may ghost you, then reappear as if nothing happened. They may use polite language, been busy, missed you, but you remember, people tell you who they are. Not by what they say, but by what they repeat. One of the most dangerous assumptions you can make is believing that good communication equals good intention. But communication can be weaponized. It can be sugar-coated. It can be rehearsed. This is why Stoics develop a still mind, so they can see clearly through the fog of presentation. You learn to ask yourself, why this tone now? Why this level of access? This quickly? Why am I being complimented in public, but dismissed in private? Why do I feel off after that conversation, even though everything sounded nice? The answers are there, but you won't see them if you only listen with your ears. People lie through omission. They deceive through timing. They flatter through repetition. But if your attention is sharp, if your presence is grounded, you'll catch what others miss. Sometimes the most important thing someone says is what they choose not to say. The topic they always avoid, the question they deflect, the moment they freeze, then recover too quickly. That's where the truth lives. In the crack, not in the polish. The Stoic strategy is clear. Observe longer. React less. Respond slower. Let people reveal themselves without you needing to rush the process. Because people will always tell on themselves. They just won't use words to do it. Pay attention to their patterns, not their promises. Pay attention to their silences, not just their sentences. That's where the truth hides. And once you learn to read that language, you become harder to deceive, harder to manipulate, harder to shake. You no longer chase clarity. You simply watch it unfold. Understanding how people express themselves is only one layer. The next is understanding how they handle chaos, because that's where the mask falls away. Let's go deeper into human behavior. With truth number 3, people respond to stress in wildly different ways, and most of it has nothing to do with you. Stress doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like fake smiles, missed deadlines, sudden coldness, or a quiet withdrawal from eye contact. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the signs and misread the storm. Most people assume stress is visible, that it shows up in arguments, slammed doors, or loud frustration. But in reality, stress wears many masks. Some people implode, others explode. Some run from confrontation. Others create it just to release the pressure they can't hold inside. Stoicism doesn't tell you to fix their reaction. It teaches you to recognize it and protect your peace from it. You cannot control their storm, but you can protect your peace. That's not detachment. That's mastery. You don't need to absorb someone else's chaos just because it enters the room. You don't have to take their tone personally. You don't have to match their urgency. You can witness it without being swept up in it. This applies in everyday life, relationships, family, work. Maybe your partner gets quiet during conflict. You think they don't care. You start pushing for answers. They shut down further. Tension builds, and now both of you feel unheard. But if you paused, if you observed their rhythm under pressure, you might notice they're not disengaging, they're drowning. They're overwhelmed, not unbothered. And on the flip side, someone may get loud, short-tempered, controlling. You think they're being aggressive, but often it's not malice, it's defense. They were never taught how to regulate pressure, so it spills out, fast and sharp. Understanding these stress responses isn't about excusing them, it's about not misinterpreting them so you can respond with power, not emotion. In leadership, this becomes even more critical. You might manage a team where one member panics, quietly hiding their stress until it turns into burnout. Another might dominate meetings, trying to overcompensate for internal fear. If all you look at is the outcome, did the task get done? Did they speak up? Did they perform? You'll miss the shift in their energy. And when that shift isn't addressed, trust erodes. As a Stoic leader, you don't just track results. You track energy. You watch for the silence that wasn't there last week. The subtle avoidance, the change in tone, the way someone used to offer ideas and now only nods quietly. These are signs. Non-verbal signals are often louder than any message in the inbox. But most people ignore them until it's too late. This is why Stoicism values awareness over control. You don't fix people. You read their patterns, and you adjust your response to stay grounded, not reactive. You approach the stressed person with calm, not pity, not overcompensation. just presence and clarity. Maybe you say, "I sense something's off." We don't need to fix it right now. Just letting you know, I noticed. That small moment, anchored in calm observation, can open doors that pressure would have slammed shut. In close relationships, this awareness builds trust. You stop assuming that someone is distant because they're disinterested. You stop taking things personally, and you start becoming a place of peace, not pressure. Because when someone is drowning, they don't need you to shout instructions from the shore. They need you to stop the storm from spreading. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is not react. Hold your center. Watch with clarity. Offer presence, not panics. People break differently. Some crack under silence. Some collapse under noise. Some lash out. Some fade away. And if you think stress is universal in expression, you'll misunderstand people again and again. You'll label calm people as cold. You'll label expressive people as difficult. You'll respond to survival as if it were disrespect. That's why the Stoic doesn't just listen to words. They listen to shifts in energy. You don't need to understand everything someone's going through to recognize that something's changed. And you don't need to fix them to respect their space. What you do need is to master your response. To stay calm when the room heats up. To stay neutral when emotions flare. To hold structure when everything feels uncertain. Because the person who can hold calm under stress wins. Not in dominance, but in trust, in clarity, in long-term power. There's nothing weak about staying quiet when others react. There's nothing passive about choosing peace over panic. That's restraint. That's maturity. That's stoicism. The world doesn't need more people who react. It needs more people who respond with wisdom. When you learn to read people's stress responses, you stop trying to change them and start learning how to stand your ground inside their storm. You become unshakable. And when others feel that, they begin to trust you with their chaos because they know it won't destroy you. Once we understand how people respond under pressure, we face a deeper challenge, the urge to judge them too quickly. But what if your first impression is the most dangerous illusion of all? Let's go into truth number 4. People judge fast, but you shouldn't. Shouldn't judgment is built into human nature. Thousands of years ago, quick judgment kept us alive. Is this stranger a threat? Is this tribe friend or foe back then? Fast meant survival. But in the modern world, fast judgment rarely serves wisdom. It doesn't protect you. It distorts you. Because now, you're not judging for danger. You're judging for comfort, for speed, for the illusion of control. You see someone who avoids eye contact, you label them weak. You meet someone quiet, you assume they're boring. You hear someone speak with confidence, you assume they're arrogant. You see a resting face and decide that person's unkind. That's not discernment. That's projection dressed up as certainty. Stoicism teaches something radically different. Pause before conclusion. Observe before deciding. Understand before labeling. Because what you see is rarely what it means. The arrogant tone might be insecurity. The silence might be overstimulation. The defensive body language might be fear, not disrespect. You're not just seeing the person, you're seeing your reaction to them. And that's not the same thing. Someone once said, "First impressions are just first guesses." A guess built on your biases, your assumptions, your personal history. Not on facts, not on character. That's why the Stoic holds back. Not to be passive, but to be accurate. In every interaction, you have two choices: react with your conditioning or respond with clarity. Most people never stop long enough to question their initial read. They go through life creating entire narratives based on micro-behaviors. They cut people off too soon, or trust too quickly, all because they think they saw enough in 30 seconds. But clarity takes time, and understanding takes humility. Let's say you're in a hiring interview. One candidate walks in, poised, articulate, energetic. Another is reserved, answers slowly, fidgets a bit. Most people would say the first one is more competent. The second one seems unsure. But what if the second candidate is just processing deeply before they speak? What if they're being careful because they actually care? What if the first one is polished but shallow? You'll never know if you let judgment close the door before curiosity opens it. The Stoic mind is trained to withhold interpretation until more data appears, not just to be fair, but to avoid being foolish, because the person you're judging is also reacting to being judged. And that feedback loop, it can kill trust before it even begins. Imagine a colleague you just met doesn't speak much in meetings. You start thinking they don't care. They're not engaged. So you stop including them. They notice. And now their silence deepens not out of apathy, but rejection. What began as misjudgment ends in disconnection. All because of speed. Fast judgment is a short-term filter, but it creates long-term distortion. Stoicism trains you to sit in that uncomfortable space of not knowing, to watch the patterns, to let time reveal what the moment can't. Because real discernment isn't about seeing with your eyes. It's about seeing with your principles. And one of the deepest Stoic principles is this: judge not by what is easy to observe, but by what is consistently revealed. When you meet someone guarded, ask yourself, is this arrogance or is this armor? When someone interrupts you, ask, is this rudeness or nervousness? When someone speaks with fire, ask, is this anger or pain in disguise? You're not just giving others a second chance. You're giving yourself a chance to respond with wisdom. Judgment might feel powerful in the moment, but most of the time, it just protects your ego, not your peace, not your growth, not your connection. The person who waits before defining others, who observes before reacting, who asks why before assuming what, that's the person people learn to trust. Because they don't deal in labels. They deal in reality. And that's what Stoicism teaches. Don't just be accurate, be fair. Be calm. Be aware. And more than anything, be slow to decide who someone is. Because people often show you the opposite of who they are before they reveal the truth. Judgment is one layer. But beneath every strong exterior, every role, every mask, there's something else, even more universal. insecurity. And that brings us to truth number 5. Everyone has it, yes, even the confident ones. The ones who speak the most often fear being ignored the most. The ones who look the strongest are often the ones who feel most fragile inside. Confidence can be real, but it can also be armor. Charm can be authentic, or it can be distraction. Insecurity is universal. Even the boldest personalities, especially them, carry the heaviest doubts. And those doubts don't always show up as silence or self-doubt. Sometimes they show up as performance. People overcompensate when they feel unseen. They talk louder, dress louder, dominate rooms, conversations, spaces, not because they're sure of themselves, but because they're terrified. You'll see the parts they're not proud of. Stoicism cuts through the noise. It teaches, your strength is how well you hide your wounds while healing them. But hiding is not the same as suppressing, and not all silence means peace. Not all volume means confidence. When someone constantly needs to prove themselves, boasting, flexing, interrupting, seeking applause, they're not trying to dominate. They're trying to belong, to feel enough, to silence the voice inside them that keeps whispering, "You're still not there." Once you understand that, your reaction changes. You no longer feel threatened by the loud ones. You feel curious. What are they trying to silence? What are they trying to prove? What pain are they covering up with performance instead of competing with them? You start observing them. You start understanding them. Because behind every need to impress is a wound that says, if I don't perform, I'll be forgotten. It's not always easy to spot. Some people mask their insecurity with perfection. Others use humor. Some lead every conversation. Some control every plan. But the Stoic sees the pattern, not to judge, but to detach from the illusion. You don't have to play that game. You don't have to match their energy. You don't have to prove anything. You just notice and stay grounded. The mistake most people make is taking it personally. They feel the need to one-up, to be louder, to prove themselves in return. But when you meet insecurity with insecurity, all you build is noise. Real strength is quiet. It doesn't flinch when someone else flexes. It doesn't need validation to breathe. It doesn't react. It reads. When someone is performing, you don't challenge the show, you just step back and let the script reveal itself. Eventually, it always does. And sometimes, the one who makes you feel small only does so because they feel invisible. Sometimes, the one who talks over you is praying someone will finally listen. Sometimes, the one who acts like they don't care is terrified of being rejected first. Everyone is carrying something. The difference is, some try to heal it. Others try to hide it. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake someone's wound for their weapon. That's why Stoicism teaches restraint. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know the fight isn't real. It's projection, fear, insecurity disguised as confidence. And once you see it, you stop taking it personally. You stop trying to win against someone who's battling themselves. You start choosing your battles, your energy, your peace, and more importantly, you stop falling for the mask. Because the loudest person in the room is not always the most confident sometimes. They're just the most afraid of being forgotten. There's power in seeing that. Power in staying calm while others perform. Power in staying kind without being naive. Power in watching, not reacting. That's what makes you untouchable. So next time someone tries to outshine you, watch closely. What are they trying to escape? What pain are they dancing around? And then remember, you don't need to expose them. You just need to understand them and never hand over your peace in response to someone else's performance. Once you see through insecurity, you begin to understand why some people make decisions that don't include you. It's not betrayal. It's just self-interest. And that brings us to truth number 6. Most people act from their needs, not your feelings. Here's a hard truth. Most people resist. Not everyone who hurts you is your enemy. In fact, most people aren't malicious. They're just self-interested. And that's not a moral failure. It's human nature. People aren't waking up plotting how to disappoint you, ignore you, betray you. They're waking up thinking, what do I need today? What will make me feel better? How can I protect my comfort, my status, my needs? And often, your feelings don't make the list. Now, this isn't an excuse. It's an explanation, and one that liberates you from unnecessary pain. Because when you stop viewing every act of selfishness as a personal attack, you stop carrying wounds that don't belong to you. You start seeing clearly. This isn't about you being unworthy. This is about them being human. That's why Stoicism urges us to strip away illusions. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, expect people to treat you well. He said, when someone does wrong, it is because they think it right. People act based on what serves them, not always on what's right. So, instead of asking, why would they do that to me? Ask a better question. What were they trying to protect for themselves? That shift in thinking changes everything. Take this example. A friend suddenly becomes distant. You wonder what you did, but behind the scenes, they're drowning in their own insecurities, silently comparing, silently retreating. Or a colleague takes credit for your work, not to destroy you, but to secure their place in a system that rewards appearances more than substance. Or someone walks away from a relationship you invested everything into, not because they hated you, but because deep down, they feared losing themselves in something real. It hurts, but it's not always cruelty. It's fear. It's ego. It's survival. And here's the Stoic insight that follows. The most painful expectations are the ones we were never entitled to in the first place. Expecting someone to prioritize you over their own desires. That's not strength. That's emotional dependency dressed up as hope. Seneca said, "He who suffers before it is necessary, suffers more than is necessary." And sometimes, the only suffering is the one we created by demanding more from people than they had the capacity to give. So, what do? We observe patterns, not promises. We pay attention to actions, not intentions. And we free ourselves from the burden of needing to be chosen, If someone consistently chooses their comfort over your connection, that's not betrayal. That's information. Don't fight it. Don't fix it. Don't chase it. Just step back. Let the self-interested reveal themselves. Let the emotionally unavailable walk away and remain rooted in the one thing they can't touch: your peace. Because true Stoic power is not found in getting everyone to care. It's in no longer needing them to. Sometimes it's not them. It's not what they said. It's not even what they did. It's the echo inside you. An old scar from a voice, a wound, a betrayal long buried, suddenly screaming through the present moment. That's projection. We all do it. Not because we're broken, but because the brain protects us by reusing old emotional maps. Someone cancels plans. You don't just feel disappointment. You feel like you're being abandoned again. Someone criticizes your idea. It doesn't just sting. It opens the old story. I'm not good enough. And in that moment, you don't see the person in front of you. You see your past. This is why Stoicism is not about pretending emotions don't exist. It's about knowing where they actually come from. But here's where things get more complicated. Others project too. When someone comes at you with irrational blame, calling you manipulative, selfish, fake, without real context, they might not be describing you. They might be describing a part of themselves they hate, but cannot face. It's easier to accuse you of playing games than to admit they're insecure about losing control. It's easier to say you've changed than to admit they've outgrown who they used to be and feel left behind. We all wear masks, but sometimes the accusations people throw at you reveal the one they are wearing. For example, if someone's always talking about how loyal they are, yet quick to call you disloyal when you set boundaries, you're not seeing honesty. You're seeing guilt management. Stoicism gives you a weapon most people never develop: discernment. You learn to pause, to ask, is this really about me or about them? Am I responsible for this emotion, or am I just the nearest container they're trying to pour it into? That pause saves relationships. It saves reputations. Most of all, it saves you. Because the worst thing you can do is take someone else's poison and call it your truth. You don't owe anyone a reaction to their projection. You don't need to defend yourself against a false narrative. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake, or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. But if they're just venting, I'll let them." This is what emotional control looks like in the real world: letting people say what they need to say, letting them project what they need to project, and choosing not to become their emotional mirror. You stay still. You stay grounded. You don't mirror chaos. You anchor the room with silence. Because what they're saying might not be about you at all. It might be a conversation they're having with a version of you that only exists in their wounded memory. And you've outgrown that version. So instead of reacting, observe. Instead of explaining, understand. Instead of absorbing, release. This is the power of Stoicism. To see clearly what belongs to you and what doesn't. To carry only the truth, not the projection. To stop the cycle instead of spinning it faster. Because, in the end, the wisest one is not the loudest, but the one who doesn't carry what was never theirs to begin with. At some point, you'll face a truth that's easy to overlook but hard to swallow. You didn't grow apart. You were never aligned to begin with. Not because someone changed, but because your values were never the same. You want depth, they want ease. You value honesty, they value comfort. You build long-term. They live for the moment. And that's not betrayal. That's reality. We spend so much time wondering, why did they do this to me? But the better question is, what did they value that I didn't when someone ghosts you? Maybe it wasn't about cruelty. Maybe they just value emotional avoidance over confrontation. When someone disrespects your time, maybe it's not personal. Maybe they don't value structure the way you do. And when someone can't hold space for your pain, maybe it's not rejection. Maybe they value emotional simplicity, while you crave emotional depth. This isn't about right or wrong. It's about different compasses. One points north, the other somewhere else entirely. The Stoics understood this. They didn't try to fix others. They didn't preach or persuade or convert. They simply lived according to their own values and let others do the same. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, don't spend your energy debating loyalty. Just be loyal. Don't argue about integrity. Just live with it. Don't try to force someone to value what you value. Let their actions reveal who they are. Here's where it gets powerful. You stop analyzing words and start observing patterns. Someone says, "I believe in honesty," but they lie to avoid discomfort. They don't value truth. They value peace at all costs. Someone claims, "I want a deep connection," but flakes. When things get vulnerable, they don't value intimacy. They value emotional safety. This is where most people miss the mark. They look at what people say, but Stoicism teaches you to look at what people choose, because our true values don't live in our mouths. They live in our habits, in our silence, in our sacrifices. And when values clash, don't try to drag people toward your compass. Just stand still. Let their direction reveal itself. If they walk with you, good. If they walk away, also good. You never lose by living your values. You only lose when you betray them to chase someone who doesn't share them. So instead of asking how could they, ask what do they consistently choose, and what does that tell me? Because once you understand their values, you stop taking things personally. You stop hoping they'll become someone else. You stop blaming yourself for being too much or too little. You just see the truth. It wasn't a matter of effort. It was a matter of alignment. So, live your values. Even when it costs you something. Especially when it costs you someone. Because that's when they stop being ideals and start becoming identity. People don't always move for the reasons you think they do. Some chase success to feel seen. Some chase peace to feel safe. Some chase nothing because they're exhausted from chasing. And this is where most misunderstanding begins. We assume others operate on our logic. We expect them to be driven by what drives us. And when they're not, we label them. lazy, unmotivated, careless, disloyal. But in truth, you're not seeing them. You're seeing your own metrics projected onto their life. Take this example. Someone gets an offer to move to a bigger city, double their salary, and climb the ladder fast. But they say no. They choose to stay in a small town, closer to nature and their aging parents. You might think they're throwing away their future, but maybe they've seen what that future really costs. Maybe they once had it, and it left them feeling hollow. Maybe they now define success as presence, not prestige. Here's the truth. Stoicism teaches you to see clearly. What motivates you may not motivate them. And that doesn't make either of you wrong, just different. Marcus Aurelius warned us not to judge people based on appearances or outcomes, but to understand the deeper forces guiding their actions. A person who constantly avoids responsibility may not be lazy, they may be terrified of failure because their childhood punished mistakes brutally. A person who always seeks admiration may not be arrogant, they may still be fighting to prove they're worthy of love. We are all pulled by invisible threads. Threads woven by past pain, forgotten dreams, and buried fears. So when someone pulls away, or takes a path that baffles you, take a breath. Pause the judgment. Ask, what are they protecting? What do they truly value? Because the real danger isn't that they're different from you. The real danger is assuming they should be the same. And when you communicate, don't just speak from your need. Speak to their motivation. If someone is driven by peace, don't motivate them with pressure. If someone is driven by freedom, don't use obligation. If someone is driven by purpose, don't offer them shallow rewards. This shift changes everything, because instead of convincing, you're connecting. Instead of projecting, you're perceiving. That is emotional intelligence in practice. And it's the kind of intelligence the Stoics valued more than raw intellect. It's what allows you to navigate relationships with grace without trying to control, convert, or criticise. Because most conflict isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about clashing motivations, playing out in silence. One person wants progress. The other wants peace. One wants to win. The other wants to heal. And if you're not aware of these drivers, you'll always speak past each other. But when you do become aware, you become dangerous in the best way, because you no longer expect everyone to share your vision. You simply observe what moves them, what slows them down, and how can I meet them where they actually are, not where I wish they'd be. That's the mark of a Stoic. Not cold, not passive, but clear. So before you try to pull someone into your direction, ask yourself, do they even want to go the same way? And if they don't, can you accept that? Because in that quiet acceptance, you find your peace. People don't remember the truth. They remember the version of the truth that helps them survive. And that version, it changes over time, shaped by guilt, ego, shame, or the simple need to feel like the good guy in their own story. You've probably seen this happen. Someone hurts you. They act selfishly, unfairly, maybe even cruelly. And months later, they tell the story as if you were the one who failed them. They erase their own role. They twist the sequence, and suddenly, the villain becomes the victim. It's infuriating, because you remember, you were there, and yet now, they're rewriting it publicly, confidently, even convincingly. But here's what Stoicism trains you to see clearly. Most people aren't lying to manipulate you. They're lying to protect themselves. It's not about you. It's about their need to feel right. Not wrong. Seneca warned us that people will bend the truth, not just in conversation, but in memory, because facing the full weight of their own choices is too painful. And so they sanitize it. They edit out the guilt. They create a cleaner, safer narrative. Is it fair? No. Is it common? Absolutely. Is it worth fighting over? Rarely. Because here's the Stoic truth. You don't need to fix someone else's memory to stay grounded in your reality. You know what happened. You lived it. And no story they invent can erase your lived experience. So when someone rewrites the past, don't chase them into a debate. Don't plead your version. Don't try to be the fact-checker in someone else's emotional courtroom. It won't work. Not because your truth is invalid, but because they're not looking for truth. They're looking for relief. That's what you must understand. When someone suddenly switches up their logic, when they deny what they previously admitted, when they paint you as unstable or ungrateful or unfair, it's not always gaslighting. Sometimes it's emotional self-preservation. They need to believe the version that lets them sleep at night. So instead of asking, why can't they just admit it? Ask, what emotion are they trying to avoid? Is it shame? Is it regret? Is it the terror of not being the hero in their own eyes? When you learn to see through the need behind the narrative, you become untouchable. Because you stop expecting accountability from those who are still protecting their ego, and you stop wasting energy correcting a past that only exists in their mind. Marcus Aurelius would remind us, you control your judgment, not their story. And once you stop reacting to their version, you free yourself from their control. That's the real win. Not in winning the argument, but in seeing clearly and choosing peace anyway. So next time someone rewrites the past, let them believe whatever keeps them afloat. You carry the truth quietly. You move on without bitterness. Because the strongest person in the room isn't the one who proves their point. It's the one who no longer needs to. Understanding people doesn't mean you excuse them. It means you see them clearly, without illusion, without denial. You begin to notice patterns, how people project their guilt onto others, how they rewrite stories to protect their pride, how they lash out not because of you, but because of something they haven't healed. And that clarity, it gives you power, because when you understand human nature deeply, you stop overreacting. You stop needing explanations. You stop being pulled into every emotional storm. You realize most people don't want the truth. They want relief. They want to feel right, even if it means twisting reality to get there. And you don't argue with rewritten memories. You don't demand confessions. You don't play defense in someone else's narrative. You respond less. You observe more. And you hold your ground silently. That's Stoicism. It's not about fixing people. It's about not being fooled by them. It's about choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and wisdom over reaction. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. So don't try to change people. Don't chase their validation. Don't carry their emotional baggage. Let them be confused. Let them rewrite the past. Let them walk away. You stay grounded. You stay clear. You stay powerful in silence. Because the most unshakable person in the room is the one who doesn't need to explain himself. In the next video, you'll learn how to become emotionally unreadable, calm, calculated, and impossible to manipulate. Watch it now, and protect your peace like a Stoic.